Silence. It's 9 o'clock, so we're waiting for our technical staff to get the camera. We're good?
You're on.
We're good? Okay. That's a recording that's due for the waste bin. Yeah. Okay, good morning, people.
Good morning.
Hey, you know what's great? Well, there's a lot of great things. You know, it's really great to be here at Podstock with all you awesome people. Man, this is so cool. I want to go back to that 60s theme, you know, because I'm a child of the 60s, you know. And it was all about peace, love, brotherhood, and geekiness, you know, right? So, you know, just get all happy and love and peace and, you know. 80s, it was a blur, you know. It just, okay, most of my life was a blur, actually, but I was busy having kids and stuff, you know, so. Well, my name's Jerry Butler, and I am a former SDAC employee of long-standing, 18 years at SDAC. I know you're thinking to yourself, this man cannot possibly be a day over 30. I mean, yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it so you guys don't, you know, you're not like, oh. But yes, I am retired. Thanks to the wonders of the Kansas taxpayers, I get this little check in the mail every month that says, you put in 30 years at school, you're 55, that was my only qualification to get this great check in the mail. You know, how many people, how many states can do that? So I'm a happy camper. So since I get a check in the mail, I thought, you know what you ought to do, Jerry? You ought to start a business. Yeah, so I did. So, and there's a slide up later, but what I'm doing nowadays, besides hanging out at Podstock, is I operate a business called Jerry the Tech Guy. So it's jerrythetechguy.com, and I've got, because I'm doing all the right stuff, I got Twitter, and I got a Facebook page, like my page. I got a Facebook page, I got a blogger, and I still am so old school that it's like, okay, I really ought to put something on that so people will visit it, you know. So I'm not so good at social media, but I do it. But anyway, that's a little bit of my backstory in that nature. What I do is I'm a technology guy. For probably 15 of those 18 years, I'd go out and a number of my school district customers in the room, Dave over there, I've worked with him. But what I do is I go out and help people set up technology, get it to work, make it work for people. And that is so satisfying, helping those kids out. God, I love to work with the kids. Most of my time spent in some dingy server room somewhere with all the fans, and you know, there's this, I feel like one of those little cave troll people that I have these rudimentary eyes, you know. So he's a server room guy. Sometimes I get out and get to talk to real people though. But I was fortunate enough too, because I'd been in this a while. I worked with 3 of the first one-to-one laptop districts in the state of Kansas. There were about 5 or 6 of them when I started doing one-to-one laptops. And that was a fun experience. Now, and most of the stuff I work on is Apple products, so you'll have to excuse me if I get a bit biased. I have an Apple bent, although I am trilingual. Yeah, because I'm a geek. Okay, I'm going to be real. I'm a geek. I speak Linux, Windows, and Apple. My native language is Apple, but you know, I can do all that other geeky stuff. And so, if you guys will have to stop me if I go off into acronym land, you know? Tech guys will go off and they'll do whole sentences with nothing but acronyms, you know, so usually I notice because people are like, anywho, that was fun, doing the one-to-one thing. We learned how to manage them. We got it down to an art and a science. The early days were scary. You know, it was really weird. Nobody had done this before. Pioneers. You know how you can tell a pioneer? They're the guys with the arrows in their butt. You know? Okay, so iPads. You know how long iPads have been out? 2 years. 2 years. Wow. How transformative have they been? How much have they changed our lives? How many of those little devils do you see floating around here? How many of your schools are going, we're getting iPads? Cool. And we're going to do what most schools do, and we're going to do technology with a checkbook. We bought a whole bunch of stuff. Cheers. Have fun. Okay. Well, what I want to talk about today is You know, maybe you are the one. Or who's like a cart queen or king? Yeah? Got those? Scary? Huh? Is it?
Especially when you have to update
It's
to iOS 5.
Pardon?
Especially when you have to update to iOS 5 one at a
Oh
time.
yeah, let's not go there. I may break into tears when that happens because I've finished like 130 of them. It's like, now announcing iOS 5 that you can only do this stuff with. So that big pile, you know, it's,
I still have some I
Start
haven't
over.
done. I rebuild.
yeah, okay. I'll help you out. Give me a help.
Well, 6 is coming.
I know, right? So, but this is part of the process, right? This is some of that stuff that we've got to learn to deal with it. So what I'm hoping to help you with today, this is like a 10,000-foot view. This is not going to be a recipe or a cookbook of how you do this stuff. What I'm trying to help you out with is how do you think about these things, because these devices are so much different than anything we've worked with before. And I'm getting a lot of amens from the crowd, right? It is a different way of thinking, and that's why I did this whole Zen thing, because you've got to embrace it. You can't fight it. It just, but you have to think differently. We have any IT guys in the crowd, guys or gals? Yeah? Me? Yeah? Okay. IT people, I may insult you occasionally, but it's all out of love, you know. I'm one of you, you know, so. These are good words anyway, but just, why fight it? Embrace it, right? It is what it is. The harder you fight to hold on, the more likely that you find go letting go. So are we ready to think different about these little critters? You really don't have a choice. I'm just trying to bring you along. They aren't laptops. You know, that's pretty obvious. There's not a keyboard on them. I don't mean it in that way. I mean, these are not manageable, and they do not work as if a laptop does. There's so many differences, very much obvious differences. But one of the things we've always done with computers in schools is given everybody an account on the device. That everyone that sits down at that lab or sits down at a laptop or grabs a machine out of a cart, they log into the server and they have their own account and their stuff stays with them, right? Are you guys tracking with me? You can't do that on an iPad. It is an individual device, okay? And that is so, think about how different that is than what we're used to. You know, that's that first step of letting go, right? Okay? It's a different environment. You can't manage them like a laptop. This fact that they're an individual device and can't be managed like a laptop makes IT people very nervous. Because this is how what? I can't just send out apps. I can't lock them down, control them, block them, filter them, stop them, customize the desktop. It doesn't follow you around. What? Huh? Now, tell me, let's testify. Aaron, what did you think when you first saw him, IT guy, and you're going, I can't, you know, right?
It was hard getting past the mindset of being able to control a laptop, just like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And Aaron, they rolled out how many?
About 700.
It's about 700, yeah. So one of the things, if you're not the IT person, and maybe you're that person that's pushing, we need iPads, we need iPads, we need iPads, be prepared that it's going to take off your tech people, sometimes very seriously. I am tired of tech people being the people that hold us back, and I'm a tech people, you know? I've been blackballed out of the community because I'm fighting back. It's time to take it back, and this is our way. Okay, what's going to get in our way when we roll these things out? You know, what kind of barriers do we have? There's some obvious ones, there's some less obvious, but let's think through some of this, because when we have to start defending this to ourselves, and because, wow, what did I do? And to our IT people, you know, what are some thoughts that we can have and use? Okay, first barrier may or may not be the IT guy. You know, that just talked about it. They may fight back, they may freak out, they may say, we're not going to do it. I've had some schools where they said, we're just not going to put them on the network. They'll wreck our network. I'm not going to open the firewalls. That push back. I can't believe the power IT guys have sometimes. They'll veto superintendents. Wait a minute. What's wrong with this picture? Why should they, huh? Am I wrong? I've seen it. You know? But what it is we IT guys have so many great strategies and tricks. So, well, why can't we do that? Well, the PRQ, the DD key, and the HTML and the and so obviously, you know, our bandwidth and our firewall and our filter and it, all right, okay. It was all acronyms. I didn't understand it. So, all right, nerds. Are we now? Nerds rule the earth, but are we going to let nerds make education decisions for us? Sometimes we have no options. But let's, you know, I'm a nerd. I'm a geek.
I think the biggest IT barrier isn't so much the IT part of it, it's IT looking at schools as a business.
Right.
If they would look at my school, I mean, I'm an IT person too, but I have IT people above me. that
Right,
are
right.
looking. And they're looking at our building as a business.
Yeah.
We're not a business.
All right. And that's a common perception. You get a lot of school IT guys that are bank people and medical people, and they want to run it that way. It's different. Yes, sir.
So as a rebuttal to that, it's not as a business, it's as an enterprise.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
You know, as
Right.
far as
Right.
I agree.
Right. And it's
the
different.
numbers of
Yeah.
devices.
And I'm preaching the good word. We got to quit doing that, right? iPad, for me, and this is one of those conceptual things that you got to get. For me, the I in iPad stands for individual. Here's your clue. Remember, only one user per device? These things were meant out of the box to belong to one person. Who's doing one-to-one iPads? Aaron, you are? Cool. But, and we'll talk about different management methods here in a bit, but just remember this, the further you deviate from it being an individual device, the more difficult it's going to be. Not impossible, just more difficult. Here's another one that freaks IT people out, and sometimes the business folks. When you buy an app for iOS, that app does not belong to the device. It may not even belong to the school in a sense. It belongs to an iTunes account. So when you set these things up, create accounts for cart managers. Don't use your personal accounts. What happens when Mrs. Smith's the cart manager, she used her iTunes account to set everything up, and Mrs. Smith leaves, gets hired by another district because she's so good with iPads. Could happen. So make sure you have institutional accounts to use with these things. Stuff you buy for them belongs to that account. And that's a different way of thinking about software assets. Okay, so that's another part of our thought process. One, if you guys are just getting these things going, and I know you're not the people that understand about wireless networks and so on, but one of the things you can do is say, I went and listened to this weird tech guy talk, and he said, these things are so needy for wireless. How's our wireless in our building? How good is our wireless? And you may not know yourself, but if things are slow and flaky and weird, you're going to roll these things out, and it is going to go very poorly. These guys talk to servers, they talk to the mothership at Apple. There's a lot of network communication going on. FaceTime eats up a lot. Well, probably ought to block FaceTime. But check into your wireless infrastructure. If it isn't great, you're going to have problems. I guarantee you. There's no Ethernet on these bad boys. If you want to get started on this, and there's going to be links to this on my blog, okay, so, you know. But Apple has a PDF document called the iOS 5 Education Deployment Guide. You know what, I just Google stuff. I don't even bother bookmarking anymore. But that is the Bible. That is the Holy Scripture of iPad deployments. Know it, live it, be it, because it'll explain all this in a lot more depth than I have been able to. How do you want to manage these? You know, you can't manage them like you can laptops, but what you can do is control them a little bit. You know, you can say, I'm not going to allow mature content in audio. I'm not going to even allow, maybe I don't want the camera to be on, because kids take goofy pictures of themselves and fill them up. There is no hard drive on these things. They got 16 gigs is what most people buy. You fill them up, you're done. Well, I mean, you can delete stuff, right? But in order to keep people from doing that, we can do some management, and that's called mobile device management. I told you I wouldn't do a whole lot of acronyms, but that's one that you're going to hear a lot, mobile device management. The cool thing about mobile device management and these things is if you have a server like Lion Server or Casper, you can remotely just click a button, say go, and the server, actually it's Apple's server. You tell Apple's server in the cloud somewhere, I want to change the management on these. God knows where this thing is. I think it's in North Carolina somewhere. And when you click that little button, all of a sudden around your building is like, honestly, it's fun. Some kids in one of my schools, they just got their iPads and they discovered FaceTime on them. What an opportunity for clowning around, right? So we're walking around and there's these kids in the classroom. We're watching one kid over here and they're kind of making faces and whatnot. And I noticed in the other corner of the room, this other kid's going, like that. They were FaceTiming each other in the same classroom. I mean, seriously, guys? Really? Is this all you got to do? Okay, so me and the tech lady at that school building, we go into the server room, we click a checkbox, and we go, click, and send, you know? So we go back to the classroom, and we're just talking, you know, kind of acting cool about it, watching the kids, and they're like, you know, right? It just went, bloop, 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 it died. So you can manage these things remotely through push technology. It's another thing that takes a lot of bandwidth, okay? But it works great. There's a book called Managing iOS Devices with Lion Server, if you're geeky enough to want to do the server thing. And another big thing that you need to get going, like if you haven't done it already, do it now. Join the volume purchasing program. Get a different account for each role, read up on it. It's very confusing. It's time consuming. It just takes a while to work through Apple's system. VPP is the only way to do this right. Volume purchasing program at Apple. Here's another fun thing about iPads. Well, I don't have time to get into it in great detail, but Apple suggests that there are 3 management roles in volume purchasing. There's a person that writes the check.
Jerry,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry to interrupt. I'm really good at volume purchasing. If someone wants to talk to me
Talk to
afterwards.
Riggs. Absolutely. It's confusing. But you got people that write the checks, people that decide who gets what app, and then there's people that say, I want these apps here, like the cart manager. And those are the 3 main roles, okay? And that conceptually is pretty good to understand. They get into it a lot in that book, the iOS guide. Okay, here's a big one, and every tech guy give me an amen. Printing is a pain in the rump and it's expensive.
Amen.
It eats up so much time and money. Why are we printing stuff? But what, these guys don't print natively, naturally, easily. And I'm saying, yeah, kill the printers. We don't need them. My gosh, how many years have we been electronic? Why do we print stuff out? You know what we've done is something, you can print with them, by the way. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it because I don't think you should be doing it. I think you should be thinking of ways you can transmit information back and forth without printing it out and handing it to somebody. All right? Let's think that way. Some of our schools, we lie to them. I'm an IT guy. I've been blackballed already. I'm out of the club, so I'm going to tell the truth. You tell them you can't print with an iPad. I wish I could print this. Can't do it. They just can't print. Okay, you're the tech guy. You said a lot of acronyms. You must be really smart. Okay, love it. There are things I should see. You know, there's things like there's a dealie called the Lantronix Xprint server. You pop it on your network. It finds all your printers. You print to it. Forget about that. You can print. I just wish you wouldn't. Where are my files? And this is a biggie, guys, that have been doing it for a while, is Aaron calls it workflow. You know, okay, so the geek, bald-headed guy said don't print. Well, how am I going to get this file or this project from me to you, to the teacher, or to whoever? And that's a tough challenge. But, okay, being a longtime tech guy, you know, how many times has somebody come up to me and said, where's my files? I saved it, I can't find it. Well, nobody understands file systems. Go to your C drive. What? Okay, just let me find it for you. Okay, all right, thanks, see ya. All right, there's no file system on these. Now that can be a challenge, but it can be a great thing because we are no longer having to worry about it. I think personally file systems are going away because we're moving to everything being in the cloud. So all this pain that I released in my Zen is just giving me joy and happiness because I won't have to deal with printers and I won't have to deal with, where's my file? Okay, here's the, again, 10,000-foot view. Apple says there are 3 ways to deploy iPads, and this is really important. The easiest, best way, no kidding, and you can do it in a one-to-one, is you make it a personal ownership model. You set them up, get them out of the box. Maybe you just hand them to the kids, put the asset tag on them and say, here's your iPad, go forth. How empowering is it for students that they're in charge of their own technology, that it's not about the IT guy anymore? Here's your device, manage it. If you fill it up with photos and you can't install apps on it, deal with it. There's not going to be a tech guy protecting you from everything, showing you how to do everything. Take ownership. Build yourself as a person. Learn to manage your technology. Frankly, they're probably way better at it than we are. Anyway. But acknowledge that. Here's your iPad. The more individual you can make it, the better your life is going to be. The better they work, because that's how they were designed. They were designed to be an individual device. A lot of folks with the carts are doing what's called the institutional model. And that's where the school retains, installs apps. There's one account maybe that's on that cart, Mrs. Smith's third grade cart at myschool.com. You know, and that iTunes account, remember, owns all the apps. They're not on the device, they're on the iTunes account. The iTunes account's in the cloud. It's not on the physical device, okay? Right? Okay, you guys with me? It's weird. It is weird. It's so different. This is a good method for cards. If you are under 13 years of age, 13 or under, you cannot have an iTunes account. So that means you can't have an app. Now, one school I work with had this little subterfuge method, and they said, let's have mom and dad create an iTunes account for Junior to use. All right. I don't know if Apple digs that. Apple can be very vindictive on these things if you try to play games. Trust me, I have. I won't go into it at length. But, so yeah, we thought it'd be cute, and we'd set up generic accounts like Student 1, Student 2, Student 3. Seemed like a great system until Apple figured out what we were doing, and they got real mad. So, and you don't want to tick Apple off. They don't play. Layered is a good way to go. And I think you guys, are you moving to individual or layered?
Personal.
Personal? Yeah,
We have
way to go.
personal and institutional.
I got an amen from the tech geek over here. Layered is where you kind of set them up, and I kind of like this, especially for cards, or you know, if you can't do one-to-one, and the kids are older than 13. I really like this method because it's best of both worlds. So you get, there's this base set of stuff that everybody gets. You know, pages, numbers, whatnot. Whatever you decide everybody needs. Set them up on a card, get that all set up, and then you hand them to the individuals and say, okay, put your stuff on. If they're assigned to it, maybe they share them. You know, it really is hard when you start getting more than one person per iPad. It gets really tricky. It's something you can't overcome, but it gets tricky. Those are the three main, like, global models that Apple likes us to use. So there's the cart thing. Now, what bothers me about carts is, you know, I like this de-evolution of IT from the IT guru Nazi guy to the classroom teacher. I love it. To the student, love it even more. But, so, Mr. Hand here, you might have caught my Spicoli act last night, I don't know. But Mr. Hand here is now in charge of an iPad cart. How do you think that's going to work out? I have another year to teach, and I'm not going to do this. You can't make me. I'm not going to do it. That's, to me, one of the risks of carts, you know, but if you're willing to learn, willing to listen, willing to try hard, I don't think anybody that's here today is going to be this kind of person. But you may have to help your buds out. You know, because I can think of dozens of teachers that, you know, we're doing the iPad thing, this cart lands, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can barely turn up my computer, and now I'm in charge of 30 iPads. It's pretty easy, but it's going to take a lot of support from you guys that know what you're doing to help them out. Okay, again, going back through the institutional, iTunes accounts own apps. The iPads then get synced with what I call the mothership. Now you can do iPad deployments without a single computer. You don't. They're able to do everything they need to do over wireless. Cards, it's better to dock them to the mothership, and I'm going to talk about some tools that can help you do that. And this is some tools that you may end up using. You can disable the App Store so kids can't buy stuff, and that may not be a bad idea. Okay, looking at layered again, we load them up with stuff that we want everybody to have. You can do, in this case, when you hand the laptop to the student, this is like maybe a carded individual, because some schools do that. We don't send them home. You get an iPad, but every night you got to put it in the dock. Okay? So they have their own stuff on there with their account. They complete the setup. They put in their iTunes information. They start loading apps. And we can hand them vouchers and say, we want you guys, everybody in this class, to have this app. And they go and download it. And it becomes their app because it belongs to their iTunes account. That's weird. We've always bought software and it stays with the school. You buy a book, books can only be owned by individuals. They cannot be owned by an institutional account. That's another, the book thing has me so stoked, but you've got to think different. Every year you've got, as the kids graduate, that's their book. They take it away from you. It's a consumable. You have to buy another book, all right? And what worries me too is we're all buying 16 gig iPads. One book can be a gig and a half or 2 gigs. We're going to fill them up. Sorry, can't take any pictures. We're full of bucks. I mean, and you can increase the size of the hard drive. Whatever you buy, they don't have a hard drive, but whatever you buy capacity-wise, that's what you got.
And you can't get the 2s in anything larger than the 16 now.
Right.
And so they're kind of, in a sense, encouraging the 2s for school because of price.
Yeah,
But
but
if you want a larger size, then not only are you paying more for the size, you're now paying more for the newer model too.
exactly right. And here's the best way to do it. I know it doesn't work in every scenario, but here's the easiest way to do it. And the man with 700 over there is shaking his head. You just hand them out to the kids. Say, create an iTunes account. Let me help you if you need. It's yours. We can do restrictions and policies on them. They're not totally uncontrollable, but they're not all that manageable. You can set some basic stuff. That's it. And if you do give them a voucher, remember, it belongs to the iTunes account. So if you give them a voucher to buy stuff, it's theirs. You just gave it away a product.
Can you go back to that one? Can you go
Excuse
back?
me?
Can you go back to that slide real quick?
Yeah. Yeah?
Oh, I can't see it, there's something wrong.
Cups in your
Yeah, so I've been doing technology for a minute. Everybody's pretty impressed with this. Yeah, thanks. Okay, profile manager. So here's one way to manage these things. It's Lion Server. Lion Server is about $1,200, cheap. It comes in a little Apple Mini server, and I've done this at a number of my schools. And it lets you do that magic push thing. You make a change and they all just change. When you manage with a cart, they have to be docked to be changed. If I decided I wanted to turn off FaceTime on a cart, I'd have to uncheck the box and then sync them to the cart, and then they would all get that property. So if you want to be able to push things out, you can use Apple Server. Casper is a server environment that they use at Nickerson and a number of other school districts. It's a more expensive thing to buy than Apple Server. It's somewhat more powerful. It lets you send out app ownership vouchers to people through a link. It's pretty cool. It's probably worth the money, honestly. Another thing that it does really well is it lets you inventory everything. Keep an eye on what's on your stuff. It's very cool. It's worth the money, especially. My rule of thumb is if you got like around 200 or more, it's probably good to get a mobile device management system of some sort, and that's just kind of pull that out of the air. The one thing that I'm super excited about now, if you're doing a cart, this is probably what you'll be doing them with, and maybe your IT guy deals with it, but you may have to work with Configurator. It's a free management app. It rocks. Oh my God, because when I first started doing this, we did everything by hand. Configurator lets you plug them into the cart, say here's what we want on them, here's the apps we want, click, go, boom. And the apps will download to each iPad. And Dave and I and his teacher set it up. Hey, we set that up and it works slick, right? It is too cool, it's like magic. Now we all had headaches figuring it out, but it works good. Yes, ma'am?
I'm using Apple Configurator, but I'm not using Profile Manager manager.
Right.
I have 300 devices,
Yeah,
600 kids, 300 devices.
yeah.
But I'm confused at how Apple Configurator works with Profile Manager. We bought
Okay.
a Mac Mini server.
Oh, cool.
I want it working.
Yeah.
But
You can do both, but I think that's actually not a bad way, because there's sometimes when you want to send out a global policy, you just don't want to have to touch every one. You just send the policy out, and they magically. Okay, you can do both. You can do it's set up in some of your management from Configurator, and you can do like more of a global management. And as you set it up, you go, okay, here's local stuff, I'm doing it on Configurator. Here's global stuff, I'm going to do it from server, all right?
so I can still do my Apple Configurator from my MacBook to my cart
Yes,
or my other system, separate from Profile Manager.
right,
So I don't have to take everything to my server.
right. No, it's push technology. You make a change on the server, it gets pushed out to the devices. Carts don't push. If you do carts, you can't do push. That's why it's good to do both. And I don't want to bird walk into that too much, but let's talk off list, all right? Cool. Configurator's great. You got to have OS 10.7 at least. I think it's 10.7, 3 or 4 now that you have to have used Configurator. It's not available for Windows, sorry. If you do need to use a management app, cheap, easy management app, and all you have is Windows machines to work with them, there's an app called iPhone Configuration Utility that lets you do much of this kind of thing on a PC. That's about the only tool you have unless you want to use Casper server, Vialine server, whatnot, okay?
Could you say that iPhone what?
iPhone Configuration Utility. And remember, all of these devices run what's called iOS 5, 6, whatever version. A phone is an iPad, is an iPod. They all run the same operating system. Different screens, they're basically the same device. Okay? And that's a good thing to remember. These are some sorts of things that you can set with management utilities. You can set passcode. You know, I want them to have a 6-character passcode. I want them to change it every 6 months. I change my mind. I change it on the server, and guess what? Now they all have to have 8-character passcodes. That's the kind of stuff you can do with push. You can set up your email. What's fun is you pre-configure them for your Wi-Fi, you know, because your IT guy gave you this string of numbers, 87 characters long, that you have to put in each device by hand. Tap, tap, tap on the little touch screen. Not fun. Okay, you can set some of that stuff. If you got an Exchange server, you can connect them to that. That's a PC thing. All this, a lot of other stuff. Web clips rock, right, Aaron? You can send out links, and they appear as icons on their desktop. And they click them, they go to your school website, they go to your wiki, they go to whatever you want to send them to, and they just pop in as an icon on their desktop. They're wicked cool, very useful. Skip, there's all kinds of like geek stuff, but almost any management system you use, including iPhone Configuration Utility, that's your toolbox. That's all you get. I wish I had time to get into it deeper, but an hour isn't going to get it. It's pretty complicated. But because Apple says, here, well, it's a thing called APIs, Application Programming Interface. The manufacturer of any software says, here's what, out of our piece of software, here's what I'm going to let you interact with. So for security on these devices, this is what Apple has said that you can have. That's what they have, that's what Casper has, that's what there's 60-some different management utilities. That's all they can do because that's all Apple lets them do. Apple has become the 800-pound gorilla of technology. They do what they want to do. Where are we at on time, guys?
9:30.
How long have I got?
35 minutes.
Oh my God, I got to keep talking. Okay, this is my site. I cannot believe I blew through that so quickly. All right, so you know what? This is confusing as heck, right?
Yep.
Want to do some Q&A? Lots of Q&A?
Hey, hey, could you
Okay.
go back to your website again?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, sorry.
You
Please.
did blow through it really fast.
Yeah, you did blow through it.
Oh man, well, you know what? You get wound up.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, but I really think this would be a good time to really do Q&A kinds of things and just chat. And I've got some buds here that are doing this, and they have more experience than I do even. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question on the personal ownership. You know, are schools buying these to keep, and then when kids graduate, what happens to them? Are kids putting out the money for these Howard schools doing that,
Um,
especially if it's personal ownership.
Right,
Where
right.
you're responsible for most of the stuff that's on there.
Right.
Is school paying for that?
Well, that's the thing, that's the weird thing about it, and that's, some of them are doing it that way. Remember, the assets, when I refer to assets, I'm talking about the software, the apps, right?
Right.
So the assets belong to the iTunes account. If the individual has set up the iPad with their iTunes account, they own all the apps, even if you said, I want you to install this app. If I go out and buy Angry Birds on my own, it's my app. Even if, okay, so apps are abstracted from the device now. So it's your choice, like some schools will do that. You know, when you're a senior and you graduate, we'll sell you back your iPad for $200 or whatever you pick. You keep it. It's your app's on it anyway. You know, we're gonna get another one, put it in the pipeline down here. So, you know, that's a method some people do. Some people roll them back in, you know, and give that senior's iPad back in. But they walk away with the apps.
But what about
That's weird.
the school issued email account? Then the kid keeps the school issued email account
Well,
forever? You just
see-
change the email account?
That's a good, see, this is the kind of stuff that will bite you in the rump
Right.
so hard. And we, you know, he's grinning over Mr. 700 iPad guy because he's made all these mistakes. But yeah, so if you do have them set it up using a school, you know, Jimmy at, you know, USD, whatever, he leaves, you kill the account, he's locked out, right? Well, you can go into iTunes and change your email address, right? All right? So that doesn't, you know, that doesn't kill you, but maybe it'd be better to say, hey, do you have a personal email account, like a Gmail? Let me help you set one up. It's really good to have an email account that's yours personally because, you know, the school district owns your account and there's no privacy there. And also, if you do it on a school machine, we can look at what you do anyway. But it's good practice for a student to have their own personal email account that they manage. And then it becomes much simpler to transition into.
That's,
Yeah.
we forced them to have their personal email account on
Yeah.
their device.
Yeah.
But
I'm
how
not,
about grade level?
Ours are teachers only right now,
oh, okay.
but that was,
'Cause
teachers
we're
were not to
talking
set it up.
fourth, fifth graders here, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we-
But half of
You
them
Gaggle
set
and
it
you do
on.
several other ones. Along with that, most of your younger ones will be carded iPads anyway.
Yeah, because if you're under 13, individual's not an option. You cannot have an iTunes account if you're under 13 years of age, so remember that as well. I had a thought, here's another one of those gotcha moments. So it's real tempting to say, you know, I'm Mrs. Smith and I'm in the 3rd grade classroom and they just gave me a card to iPads and they told me to manage this, they gave me a card to buy stuff with, right? Okay, so I'm gonna hop on this thing and I'm going to like load up a bunch of stuff. And then I mentioned the scenario earlier, Mrs. Smith leaves. Okay, everything on those they're tied to her personal account. So you have, maybe she's unhappy, maybe she got hit by a truck. So now how do I get ownership back because it's part of her iTunes account? I can't hack into her iTunes account. So what I like to do with cards is set up Mrs. Smith's 3rd grade card at USD397.com. And then you know the password, or the IT guys. Have the IT guys set them up for you. And then when Mrs. Smith leaves, you take those credentials out of your little spreadsheet and you say, here's your iTunes account for that card. So don't use a personal account to manage an iTunes or iPad card because you'll regret it. It just gets so messy. And this is the stuff you don't think of until it happens. And you go, oh, man, that was stupid. How many times did you tell yourself that, Aaron, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
Nobody
oh,
wants to know.
we stumbled so bad on this stuff.
I have at least 100 Apple IDs that if I could remember them, I could use.
So he's testifying, sure.
I was just gonna share, and I have a perspective from a smaller district. We have about 90 iPads on campus, which with the IT staff we have, which is me, that's reasonable. But I have learned by mistake a lot. The first iPads that came on our campus, I didn't even know about because somebody else in a different department bought them.
Yeah, they did it
And
by
delivered them
checkbook.
to our teachers.
Check by checkbook.
And we're running into this right now, actually, because I'm going back to the classroom this year, and the special ed teacher that had the iPads before me, personal account.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, maybe I'll say, a lot of our teachers aren't tech savvy, so I'm talking to her, I'm like, do you use the iTunes account anywhere else? Because I was gonna go in and change her email,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, but it's integrated.
yeah,
We're screwed.
yeah, essentially,
You know-
well put.
Jerry, setting up the VPP program,
Yeah, oh, see, and that's so
the
critical.
VPP really helps with that issue, I think,
Right,
because then that way
because
you don't
what
have
Apple,
that.
thank you. What Apple, and let's talk VPP a little bit.
Yeah, well, and what I was gonna say is, when I walked in, what I've done, at least for my school, is because we're now a Google Apps school, I have created dummy accounts.
Oh, sure,
And so, like our cart, it has an email account.
yeah,
Our cart is tech@Blevins.
right, and that's
You
what I
know,
recommend.
And that's what I would recommend, is
Absolutely.
creating accounts, email accounts for inanimate objects,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, it's a smart way to go.
And,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would love to talk volume purchasing.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's-
pretty good at it.
It was really a complicated thing to get your brain around, but it's essential, right? Right, Nancy?
Yeah.
Once you get into it,
And-
it's not so scary.
So if you have
Yeah.
two carts in one building, would you
Yeah.
put an email account on each cart?
Yeah.
I would,
Now-
I used to say no, but now I say yes.
Here's something else to think about. Hang on just a sec, okay? Here's something else that I've done, is you can do one mothership for like 6 cards. And with one iTunes account and using configurator, I wish I had, my Lion machine is dead right now, I'll show you. But in configurator, you add all these devices so you get a list of iPads, and it's so cool. It'll say 3rd grade cart 1, and as you go through it says sequentially number, and you plug them all into the cart and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30. Okay, now I've got like all these guys in here. Well, I know 1 through 30 is Mrs. Smith's cart, and 31 through 60, I'm not a math guy, stop me if I get, yeah, okay. Wait a minute, you counted that one twice. But you can set up groups for them, and you can say, okay, 3rd grade gets these apps. Check, 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 click, sync, boom, they're done. Now I'm on the 4th grade cart, and they don't get these apps, and they get these apps. Chug, 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 chug. Now, configurator, you can only put apps on that you buy through volume purchasing program. And I believe free apps, did you guys do free apps okay?
You do it for
Now, well, I'll just keep rolling, all right. So configurator's your friend, but we were talking earlier, this has been a fun thing for me as an longtime Apple geek, where I got hated for years by these PC guys. That's a toy computer, but I don't want that. And one of my schools that I used to work in, they were all PC. When I walked in the door, I was the only Mac product in the entire campus, right? And they're hating and laughing and all this. So that my buddy from that school says, you know, we're getting iPads and we bought a MacBook Pro for every teacher. That's too bad, man. Yeah, they're gonna love it. I'm sorry I'm such a zealot. I mean, PCs are fine, I think. Okay, it'll be all right, yeah.
So Reese,
Excuse me?
can I share why I'm doing one with all 7 of my cards?
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason I would do one account, I had it set up with 6 accounts last year. It's a little more to manage, and we only put free apps on our iPads last year, non-using Apple configurator. So I did have a few paid, but it was mostly all free. This next year, we're moving to one MacBook, all 7 cards, Apple configurator, set up my groups, I already have it going, have paid apps in there now. The advantage is I can move my paid apps. So if this year that teacher decides they want video physics that has card A, but next year it's a different teacher that has card A and they don't want video physics again, I can move it to another teacher that does. So I have a limited amount of money for apps, which I actually have a fair amount, but I still am holding on to it with, dire need, because I don't know when that $10,000 is gonna be gone. So I like the fact that I can control it with one. My principal also made me make a book of you know what you're talking
Probably
about,
printed it out, didn't you?
and put it in the vault of accounts, because she was
Yeah.
extremely worried about that. And then
Well, $10,000, man.
yeah, the
Somebody's
other
gonna
thing
come
the
look at it.
district did that was smart, and it's probably the only smart thing they did, is they haven't supported me with a lot of it, but for my accounts that has to do with volume purchasing, I'm not the top one, but I'm the second one and the third one.
Yeah.
they actually made an alias account associated with my email,
Perfect.
so that when I leave, they still have control over those two accounts and can move that alias account to whoever
That's
next
great.
person. That might sound kind of crazy, but if you ask about an alien account to your
Alias,
email,
yes.
alias,
Yeah, it is kind of
alien,
aliens,
I'm an
very
alien.
alien, isn't it?
Alias account, it really helps.
Yeah, and talk to your IT people, you can't take them off too bad because you need their help, but you can also rejoice that you're breaking their iron fist over, sorry IT guys. But that's an excellent way to do it. I know a number of people that do that. They create, and an alias is basically a dummy account that like goes to you, but they can also say, okay, she's gone, she finally went crazy and she's being treated now, and we're all happy for that. But then you can point that alias to somebody else. Yeah, sure.
Another suggestion to that, because like you said, volume purchasing, there's 3 rules. And what we did in our campus is, because there's the program manager, the program facilitator, and the end user. And we have email accounts. We have Apple PM, @Levens, Apple PF for the facilitator. And again, they're accounts for people that don't exist, but they do.
Yeah, right.
And because I had that thought, I won't be at my school district forever.
Right.
If I put those all in my name, the school district
Yeah,
is
just
gonna
don't do
be
it.
messed up.
Does that, and she really kind of described the 3, and you'll read up on VPP, because it's critical to have volume purchasing if you don't have it already. But there are 3 main roles, and each one's an individual. It can be 1 person, it can be 2 people, it can be 3 people, it can be 18 people, but you have to have an account for each of those roles. There's no other way to do it.
The top person has to be able to sign contracts.
Right. Yeah, legally it says on there, you have to be a business authority for your school district, okay? Yes,
I have a
ma'am.
question.
Hang on just a second, okay? Yes, ma'am.
How do you suggest you manage 12 iPads for 450 kids?
That's a challenge, because individual, wait a minute, I'm not good at math, but no, that doesn't work,
That's
right?
hardly a part.
It gets to be a challenge because, all your stuff is lumped together. Everybody that touches that, everything they create is in one spot.
It's 3rd,
So-
4th, and 5th graders using it.
Yeah, you can bounce them out. I don't know, who's had enough? Yeah, sure.
I'm using 30 for 600,
Yeah, okay,
because we have 1 cart for our whole district.
yeah.
And you just get creative. But I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot.
Right?
I almost probably do too much. But like on my iPad, when other tech people see it, they're like, wow, that's great. Because my iPads are very organized. Like we use folders.
Yeah.
And I have primary folders on my iPad
Mhm.
where the little kids know that's where their
Yeah,
stuff
and
is.
that's, all their
And I
stuff
have
is one
science
icon.
folders on my iPad.
Yeah.
And when they're in the science class, they know where that's where their stuff is.
Thank you, Sharon. Ma'am, you had a question?
I have a question for the guy that has 700 iPads. Did you have the kids set up an iCloud account to help with the overcrowding on their iPad where they could store some stuff?
iCloud?
Well, as far as storing stuff, that's, I think, a separate issue,
Uh-huh.
but originally, no, and that was one of our issues from the tech side, we didn't know what we were doing. This year, yes, we will be. We're gonna be sitting down with each student one-on-one when we hand them out to them. If they don't have a personal account, they will by the time they leave the room, get them all set up on the iCloud where they can back up and go through that whole scenario. We're moving toward or we will be implementing the personal account.
Okay. Because on the iCloud, can't they store
Up to
so
5
much
gigs.
for free?
Yeah.
That
Okay.
includes everything though. If they start backing up their iPad, however, like I just did mine the other night, and I'm about full. I'm at 15 gig, I'm at 16, and it takes about 3.5 gig of the storage, so they'll only have maybe 1.5 left
Okay.
for their photos, which I
Music takes up a lot too.
But yeah, music, if they're photo streaming and all that stuff.
Aaron, when are you gonna sit down with them one-on-one? Is that like part of their enrollment process? Or
No, it's
during
be the
once
first
school starts?
2-3 days of school,
Holy
pulling them
cow.
in groups. We
Do
have
you like alcohol?
I recommend it highly. This is gin actually, so I'm just saying. You notice how loose I got up here? Woo!
If you're
Yeah.
not a drinking person
I found if you don't put an olive in your martini, people have no idea, right?
And Aaron, what school district are you at?
Nickerson, USD 309.
Aaron's a great resource, and he's a very helpful guy. So, of course, you can always get in touch with Jerry the Tech Guy, shameless plug, and I'll help you out. I can save you a lot of time and save you a lot of mistakes probably, right Dave?
Well, what we did, and we had Jerry come out, and we got him, we mapped it all out first. We were gonna run 2 different sets. We're gonna run a 6th grade cart, mostly 6th grade, some 5th grade, and we wanted them to be able to come in. We're letting the teacher manage it and run it all, but we set it up with one primary email and then broke it down for every device. And then we actually gave every staff member, we bought all new staff members, or all of our staff members iPads and our entire freshman class iPads. But theirs, we actually bought a separate cart, even though those are one-to-one, the kids will have them at all times. And the reason we did that was for volume purchasing, because if I have 8 people that want a program, I'm gonna go ahead and buy, over 10, get the full set. Get
20
half
is the
price,
break point, yeah.
hit our mark, and then I can save them. But we're telling every teacher, this is your school email, but immediately log out and do your own personal one if you want it. Because then when they buy their apps personally,
Right.
then we got Jill an iTunes card 2 days ago, and we're having her put it on her account so that if she wants to buy it, she can do it, but she'll keep those as she goes. And then for teachers, if we want something major we want to push out to them, they bring them in, we can dock it, we can sync it, and quickly have them updated instead of having to run to each device and add it, or
Right.
put the money on their account. They can just come in, we log it in, we sync it, and it's just
So
popping
yours
right out.
the layered approach?
Yeah.
Yeah, later.
We're running, sorry, I have a hard time hearing, so, yeah,
Too many years of guns, right?
too many years, yeah.
This guys, you got to talk to Dave. He's a fascinating man. He's done a lot of things. No, I love him. He's cool. But he's got some stories.
I do.
Did you have a question earlier?
Well, when I got the files and everything, I do a backup, and then I plug in the other one to sync it from backup from the other one, then
Right.
go back, rename it. Is there any way faster, restore from backup,
Backup.
sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any way faster to get them all synced?
Well, yeah, but if you use configurator, I mean, you just
Because I'm not, this is my first year.
Well, I know, and see a lot of, and you don't know what you don't
I
know.
know.
And the obvious way to
They're
do
like,
it is
"Here."
you just touch every one, right? And that's all we had when we first started this, but now we've got tools like configurator. And to use it, I mean, it's actually very simple to use. If you have a Mac with 10.7 on it, and you just get a copy of configurator, you might be better off almost starting over, right? But you can get one set up the way you like it and back it up and use it as the base, and then just fix it with configurator. Might be a good way to go, if that makes any sense. But yeah, basically it's like re-imaging it. They're all clones of each other. But then and I've done that at some of my schools. We set them up individually like that. And it's like, oh my God, this takes so much time. We'll go back in, set up with configurator, and just go, and they're perfect. So
Yeah, and if the kid gets them, they come back and they're totally folders or.
yeah, and that's the nice thing about restoring from backup, because especially when you got hundreds of kids using a few devices, they can move anything around, hide it, stick it in another folder, whatnot. And so every once in a while you just dock it and it all just goes swoosh and it's perfect again, But when you swoosh, remember stuff goes away, right? If they have things stored on there. Yeah. So there's the I know, right? You're going, oh God.
Jared?
Yeah.
I'll do a shameless plug for you, because I've known Jerry for several years now, and I moved into a new district as an administrator, and then like I said, I had 3 or 4 different types. I brought in the teachers, I brought in the IT, I brought in everybody, and we sat down and like I said, mapped it all out. And as an administrator, I was looking at it saying, the amount of time that it was going to cost my teachers to do that versus the amount of time it was going to cost my IT person versus ownership of the individual apps, because if Jill buys something on her own, I want her to be able to keep that if she gets a new device. If this device crashes or is stolen, I want to be able to get a new device and get all the stuff back on it the next day, dealing with the vendors, dealing with everything. The cost of having Jerry out was minimal compared, and we did it in one day from like 8 to 3. And we had had it done, and that was walking into a new district blind, not knowing the setup for the system, whether we were running static line or not, so.
Love you, man.
That's Jerry.
That's Jerry.
And the reason was, I knew Jerry when he was at ESDAC, and I said, if we're gonna do it,
Well,
we're gonna do Jerry.
honestly, if it gets down, I should have charged him more money, obviously. Oh. But anyway,
I want a discount next
you
time.
anybody can do this stuff, and, anybody can write a symphony technically. I mean, but you the cool thing about it is, it isn't as hard as IT used to be. You don't have to be an uber geek to do this. You have to be brave and bold and brave, right? That's all it takes. Do it. No pressure. It's all you, baby.
And I'll be Jerry, the tech guy.
Wait a minute. I'll pay out of my personal account. I don't want to do this. Oh God, I'm scared. It's fun. It's fun. Be great. Okay, other questions? I got about 3 or 4 minutes here. This has been great. Fun.
Can you repeat the statement you said when you sing?
Yeah.
To the cart?
Yeah.
All the projects?
Well, okay, see, not when you, okay, and thank you for making me clarify that. Okay, so when you sync to the cart, if you're syncing, really what syncing means is, the apps, here's the apps I chose and they're going on there, and here's the changes I've made and they go on there. That's a sync. Now, when you restore from a backup, okay, you just have to be aware of what you're doing. So you've got a backup on there and you like it because everything's perfect, right? And so you restore from that, it makes it look like it did before they screwed it up.
So you can do that with some.
Yeah, exactly. But when you do restore, because whatever was on your backup is what's on your new machine, right? And so all the files that they've created are gone if you restore from backup, and that's real critical to think about. Yeah.
We are moved in a bunch.
Yeah.
But just for staff, is there a recommendation and so
I would still use Configurator or something on them. I got a little IT guy left in me, and I don't like to have things out there that are just completely uncontrolled and unmanaged, even if it is an adult.
Here, go figure it out. And
Yeah.
they're like, they have no iTunes account. I mean,
Right.
it's
But
so.
a lot of it, because it is individual, you have to do it with them individually, but I'd still put some management and control on them. Just so if you have a hook in it, you can always reel it in if things get weird. But if you don't have a hook in it, you gotta grab them all, hook them, and then work them.
So far as your iTunes account, don't use your.
If it's an individual model, you.
I guess, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I know, right? It's a teacher's device, and you're okay with them having everything, just let them use their personal account.
But that's the idea,
But-
is you're probably doing work, like the teacher is highly.
Are we out of time?
Kind of.
With the idea that perhaps next year you're gonna get more. So that's why I need to just make that individual, because then the next year when you bring in
Right.
100.
So it's a lot to think about here,
Yeah,
right?
you kinda have to plan for
Guys, I'm out of time, I
We're not
think.
either.
I think we're